For today's sponsor we have GVG Mall, where you can acquire your Windows 10 Home serial key for only $16, and using my SKAG discount code will get you 20% off, making it only $11. After the payment you'll receive the key in your account, and after getting it you simply need to introduce it in your Windows settings and BAM! You have an activated system.
My brother used to break in our house and steal the TV.
But now he's dead.
Hello guys, Ancient Gameplays, I'm Fabio Pisco, and welcome to my channel. It has been some days that I'm actually recording here in my room, and it actually has a simple explanation, at least in this scenario, with all the lighting and so on. It has a decent and easy explanation, which is the heat. If, let's say, if it is 30 degrees out there, it is like 35 in here, so it's really hot. And with the lights and so on, it gets even hotter, so that's why I actually don't record much here in the summer, and I prefer to record outside and so on. Today's video is about the RX 580 versus the RX 5600 XT versus the 6700 XT. Okay, I have a previous video of the RX 580 versus the 5700 XT versus the 6700 XT. So this video is a bit redundant, but it is just for the people that actually want to see the 5600 XT, in action. That's why I'm making it and putting it against the RX 580 and the 6700 XT. In later videos, I will put, for example, the 5500 XT versus the RX 580 versus the RX 570, and for example the RX 580 versus, let's say, the Vega 56, and then the 6700 XT or the 6800. You will choose in a poll like this one I made, and you voted for this video. So yeah guys, without any further delays, don't forget, hit like, subscribe and share this video, and let's now go to the benchmarks, because that's what you're here to see, I assume. Let's go!
I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their nails done.
Hole hidden behind that poster that leads to the real world. We all feel safe in that room. But sometimes something crawls out from behind the poster. And the ones that see it happen freak out and try to forget what they saw.
Today's first game is Remedy's Control using the X12 and high settings, which are the maximum ones apart from ray tracing. Here we can already see the differences. At 1080p the RX 580 shows itself considerably slower than the RX 5600 XT, as it should be, and the difference is around 25 average FPS, which makes us go from the barely playable 50 average FPS to around 75. At 1440p we have 30 FPS console experience with the RX 580 and around 45 average FPS with the RX 5600 XT. The RX 6700 XT though is in a league of its own, with almost double the FPS of the RX 5600 XT. At 4K, the pattern continues, with the 6700 XT being the only card able to play this game at over 30 average FPS. Now with Assassin's Creed Valhalla using the X12 and very high settings. Once again the RX 580 fails to deliver 60 average FPS even at 1080p, and once again the RX 5600 XT gets us around 75. On the other hand, the 6700 XT gets us more than double the performance of the RX 580, and almost 50 FPS more than the RX 5600 XT once using SAM, which is insane. At 1440p we still have a major performance difference, and at 4K the 6700 XT is once again the only card pushing more than 30 average FPS, in this case 50. Now with Gears 5 running Ultra settings and the X12. This is actually a game where the RX 580 doesn't perform that bad. I mean, we're pushing Ultra settings in a game as gorgeous as this one, and the card is still able to deliver us 50 average FPS at 1080p, meaning that reducing the settings a bit will easily get us over 60. The RX 5600 XT also gets us pretty decent results, but this time we do have a big difference by overclocking the card, mostly in terms of 1% lows. Being at 1080p or 1440p, the RX 6700 XT is an amazing upgrade over the other two cards, even more if taking advantage of SAM. Funny enough, at 4K the RX 5600 XT performs worse than the RX 580, and I assume it is due to having only 6GB VRAM and having 192-bit bus instead of 256-bit bus presented in the RX 580. Rainbow Six Siege is our next title, using the usual Vulkan API and Ultra settings. Even the RX 580 can deliver us around 170 average FPS at 1080p, and even at 1440p we get around 100 average FPS, which is quite insane for a GPU as old as this one if you ask me. As for the RX 5600 XT, we get a pretty nice performance bump over the RX 580, and if we go to the RX 6700 XT the numbers are mind-blowing. I mean over 400 average FPS at 1080p max settings, and over 260 average FPS at 1440p. And I mean, even at 4K this card can deliver 127 average FPS, meaning that people with high refresh rate panels surely want a card at least as powerful as the RX 6700 XT. Now with Red Dead Redemption 2, one of the biggest masterpieces ever made, in my opinion of course. This game is known to be very heavy, and that is not a lie, even more at higher resolutions. Also take in consideration that the minimum FPS numbers are given by the benchmark itself and aren't usually very reliable, so let's focus instead on the averages. At 1080p high settings, the RX 580 is able to deliver 50 average FPS, with the possibility of getting 60 by decreasing some graphical options. The RX 5600 XT on the other hand easily gets us around 70 average FPS, which in terms of smoothness is worlds apart from what the RX 580 offers us. As for the RX 6700 XT, the results are once again astonishing. We get over 115 average FPS at 1080p and over 130 when activating SAM. Even at 1440p we get around 100 average FPS, while the 5600 XT struggles to get over 50. At 4K, the 6700 XT is the only card able to get us over 55 average FPS, while the RX 580 can't even reach 30, which is fairly reasonable here. Our last game with side-by-side comparisons is The Division 2 using the X12 and Ultra settings. The results are pretty interesting here. As you can see, the RX 5600 XT gets us an average of 90 FPS, which is around 40% increase over the RX 580, while the 6700 XT is easily pushing around 140 average FPS, making it almost 3 times the performance of the RX 580, which is crazy. And this without SAM, since it doesn't seem to do much here. At 4K, all the cards get a huge hit in performance, with the 6700 XT struggling to get 50 average FPS, while getting over 90 at 1440p. Very interesting results.
Father would kill me if he finds out I went up with you. Twice if he learns we've been to a Hansa off-limit zone.
Metro Exodus is an exceptionally good game, and that is why I always bring it to the bench table. If you have a ray tracing card, get the Enhanced Edition, which is made just with ray tracing lighting and reflections and looks absolutely amazing and realistic, and plus it is free for the people already owning the normal game. In terms of results, they are within the trend, the RX 580 pushing around 50 average FPS at 1080p Ultra, the RX 5600 XT pushing a noticeable 83, and the RX 6700 XT easily pushing over 120 average FPS, once again with SAM doing absolutely nothing in this game. At 1440p, the RX 5600 XT struggles to deliver 60 average FPS, and at 4K, even the 6700 XT is unable to deliver close to that. Overall, pretty nice results for all cards. The last game tested today is Forza Horizon 4, one of the best arcade racing games I've ever played. Apart from the game being really good overall and looking gorgeous, it is still awesomely optimized. At 1080p max settings and 2x MSAA, even the RX 580 can achieve almost 70 average FPS, while the RX 5600 XT sits comfortably at over 110. Even at 1440p, the RX 5600 XT delivers us around 90 average FPS, and the 6700 XT, when activating SAM, gets us 145 average FPS, which is nothing less than astonishing for a mid-tier card. At 4K, the RX 6700 XT is still delivering almost 90 average FPS with SAM, and the RX 580 can deliver the console cinematic experience of 30 FPS, which, if you ask me, isn't that bad taking in consideration it is RX 580 and 4K resolution. Let's move to the conclusion. So now that you actually saw the benchmarks, what I have to tell you is one simple thing. I think that it's just one thing that you have to ask yourself. Is it worth upgrading? Taking in consideration the current price tags? Well, if you have, for example, an RX 580 and you can actually find a decently priced 5600 XT, then maybe an upgrade may be a thing. So you have almost the same power consumption, almost the same, way less temperatures, way less power draw, and you have more performance. Even more if you're going for 1080p, you pass from like 45, 50 FPS to, let's say, 70 or even more. So you're in that limbo, if you're in that limbo of the 50 FPS, going from 50 FPS to 70, or let's say even more, will make a huge difference. For example, if you have a FreeSync monitor, and if you go from 50 to 75, it will make a huge difference in terms of smoothness. So if you really want to upgrade, and you have no cards available, and you can find this one, the 5600 XT, at a decent price, go get it, okay? If it is, let's say, $400, $500, please don't do it. If you catch one, let's say at 300, maybe from a friend or something like that, grab it. If not, just ditch it. As for the 6700 XT, well, it is a massive upgrade, a really massive upgrade from both cards, but mostly from the RX 580. So if you have an RX 580 and you can get a decently priced 6700 XT, go for it. And if you have a Ryzen CPU or Intel 10th gen or 11th gen, so you can actually use SAM with the 6700 XT, it is a must. Okay, this if you want to play at higher resolutions, of course, or at higher FPS numbers. Because if you're playing at 60 FPS, let's say even at 1440p, even the 5600 XT will suffice in most cases. But if you want a card to last you for quite so long, for quite some time, I mean, and you want to maybe later upgrade your resolution, your monitor, of course, then the 6700 XT is a thing that you actually should consider, if priced correctly. And by correctly, I mean like at a complete max of $700 right now in this day. So a max of $700, and it is a lot already, but as you know, prices are crazy. And well, that's all for today's video. Really and seriously, thanks a lot for watching. Once again, don't forget, hit like, subscribe and share this video because that really helps a lot. And well, I mean, see you in the next one, why not? See you in the next one, guys. Yeah. Yeah.